say she left home and was supposed to meet up with friends for a birthday party. She never showed up. Wasn't reported missing for 6 hours.
Her mother saw her leave.
She's a good girl. She gets good grades. She does good in school. She doesn't hang out with bad people.
Now there may be holes in the family's timeline.
Authorities now expanding the search.
Pulling all traffic off of a road near the mall where the girl would have had to cross when she was walking to the birthday party, and just started randomly asking them if they had seen anything strange there.
Desperately making pleas to the public for assistance.
If anybody has seen something that they think would apply to this case, something on the street, some information from a neighborhood, anything at all, even if you think maybe it's not very important, we're asking folks to please share that information with us.
Please don't assume that we already know something.
4 p.m. supposed to meet the friends. 7 p.m. the party time. Leaves 3 hours early.
Kayleah vanishes in broad daylight. How could it happen?
This is a very manpower-intensive investigation at this point, but we are sparing no resources in conducting that investigation. There will be no lead that is uncovered because of lack of resources. And just to be clear on how important this is to law enforcement at the moment, you know, I can speak for the chief. We have received offers of assistance from other police departments in the area, departments in the Denver area. Other federal agencies have called me and offered to lend resources to this thing. So there will be a considerable effort brought to bear to bring Kayleah home, and that effort will continue until we have done everything we can or she is safely home.
I'm Jean Casares of the Legal Network in session in for Nancy Grace. Over 50 FBI agents are on this case now, as well as local authorities, Denver police. The entire state of Colorado is looking for Kayleah Wilson, a little 6th grade girl that was going to a birthday party, but she never made it. Her mother thought she was at the birthday party, but she wasn't. She never got there. I'd like to go out to a very special guest. I am always so honored when you are on this show, Dr. Joshua Perper, Chief Medical Examiner, Broward County, Florida. You know, when I think about this, and she had enough foresight to take her asthma inhaler with her. That shows me, doctor, she thought she might need it. We don't know where she is now, but what are the health concerns about a child with asthma?
Well, a child with asthma is subject to what we call asthmatic attacks, in which there is shortness of breath, which is significant, and those inhalers help because they dilate the airway so the child can breathe easier, and children have a smaller airway than adults, and also some of those inhalers have steroids, in other words, substances like cortisone, which fight or combat infection. So it's very important to have this kind of inhaler because they prevent or they control an asthmatic attack of shortness of breath, which can be significant and can be complicated even by loss of consciousness attack.
All right, let's talk really bluntly here, because I heard the FBI agents say that they are searching in dumpsters for things from her that could have been put in there. The only thing we know she had with her was the inhaler. If something has happened to her and she doesn't have her inhaler, what could happen?
Well, I believe that it depends what was the severity of her attacks. In other words, that we should know, and we should know whether she uses the inhaler and with what frequency. And based on that, we can conclude whether she would have a severe asthmatic attack or not. And as I said, she can have severe shortness of breath. Sometimes it may develop in an asthmatic, in what we call status asthmaticus, in which an attack of asthma follows another attack, and it's very dangerous both to health and to the life of the patient.
Yeah, sometimes you can't breathe at all, right?
That's
Mark
correct.
in Pennsylvania. Mark, good evening.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for taking my call.
You're
my
welcome.
original question was, did the young lady have a cell phone? But I see on the TV that did anybody have her cell phone? Did her girlfriend, who she was supposed to meet up with, have a cell phone that they could have tried to get this information out there faster than they did?
You know, it's a good question because cell phones are so important. I think the little girl has gone to authorities. They know where she was waiting for her, which gives a bit of a timeline. But to Paul Penzone, Director of Prevention Programs, childhelp.org out of Phoenix, Arizona, by not having a cell phone, how do you even begin to construct that necessary timeline?
It's not going to be easy, and I commend law enforcement because if you listen, every time they respond to something, they have one focus, and that's recovery of this little girl and to do a very thorough investigation. They're not getting sidetracked with subjectivity. They have to find a starting point. That's why the community has to have the same sense of urgency that law enforcement does. Time is critical. The longer time passes without getting evidence, the more difficult it is to recover her. And additionally, it increases the volume of violence and the likelihood of recovering her. That's very scary.
A very good point. Let's go to the lawyers, to Randy Kessler, defense lawyer out of Atlanta, Doug Burns, defense attorney out of New York. Thank you both for joining us. Obviously, somebody knows something, right? Somebody knows something. First of all, to Randy Kessler, defense lawyer, what's the next step in all of this?
Well, you know, if it's a random act of violence, that's the scariest proposition. If we don't know who did it, somebody just saw her and picked her up and had no plans, that's hard. You got to start with the known. The known things are she dated a 17-year-old. What does the 17-year-old see in her? Vulnerability. Maybe his friends saw
but
vulnerability.
they say he's cooperating at this point.
But maybe he has friends that saw that he dated a young girl who was vulnerable, and maybe his friends had ill intentions. Who knows? And the sex offenders. Those are the two starting points, in my opinion.
And let's show everybody the list of sex offenders. There are 133 registered sex offenders in the area close to where she lived. Doug Burns, your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts track what the police were saying, Gene. In other words, you've got to interview everybody very, very carefully. Other students, teachers, friends, reconstruct what she was doing in the time leading up to when she left to go to the birthday party. You made a good point about a cell phone. That's always critical because A, you can see calls back and forth, but B, you can also sometimes track somebody's location through a cell phone. So, I mean, the police are doing everything they can. It's a baffling case, though, I got to tell you.
It's a baffling case, and it is urgent, the FBI is saying. To Stephanie in Arizona. Hi, Stephanie. Thanks for calling.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. Your thoughts?
I just have a quick question and comment. My comment would be, I think some of these parents need to be charged with neglect. You're letting your 12-year-old walk across the freeway who has medical issues. What is she thinking? I just think that's absurd. I think if these parents got charged with neglect, maybe some of them would watch their kids closer. And my question is, are there any cameras in the area where she was or went missing that could maybe be viewed and maybe see what happened to her?
All right, Stephanie, two good thoughts. First of all, to Troy Coverdale, news director, KFKA Radio. You're right there in Greeley, Colorado. Is there any surveillance video anywhere? I heard you say earlier it was a residential neighborhood.
It is predominantly a residential neighborhood. However, at the intersection of 23rd Avenue and the 34 bypass, which is the overpass that we were discussing that she had to make her way around to go to her friend's place, that happens to be a traffic signal that has surveillance cameras at the signals. You're also talking about the fact that the Greeley Mall is centrally located right there. I'm thinking off the top of my head of a number of restaurants that line 23rd Avenue right there that potentially, if they have surveillance cameras connected to the outside of the restaurants, they would be able to maybe go back and try and at least locate and see if they had anything of her walking by.
So Troy, was her little friend that she was supposed to meet before the mall or at the mall or close to the mall? Run us through that whole thing.
This would have been this would have been after the mall. And the reason that we keep referring to the mall is just because it stands as a solid landmark in terms of the direction she was headed, in terms of the fact that it lay in between the two places, her apartment as well as her friend's home.
To Dr. Lillian Glass, I have to ask you this. A mother allowing her child to be out at 10 o'clock, not calling authorities, not calling anyone. It's a school night. This is a 6th grader.
Exactly. And I question the mother. I question what she's all about because she's not very responsible. She's allowed her to be with a 17-year-old boy. And I want to know her emotional state.